we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'd like to let the record show that we are all present and move on to the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on. Announcements and communications. Or we're going to go to approval of the agenda. I'm sorry about that. I'm getting ahead of myself.
I'll move the approval of the agenda as submitted, unless there's something to add.
I'll support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Move on to announcements and communications. We have a gentleman here, Brad Hansen from Oakland County Brownfield Program Coordinator. Is he here?
I don't see
John Brad is on a Zoom, so he should be able to hear and speak through the speakers. Brad, can you hear us?
Brad, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Brad.
How are you?
You're here
Can you
in the
see me
Lyon
now?
Township boardroom.
Hang on.
Do I have the ability to share?
Oh, we see you now.
Yep, you should be good. You should be able to share also, Brad.
Okay, let me, I apologize, let me get settled here. Zoom.
Bless you.
You see my screen, my PowerPoint?
Yes,
Yes.
we see it.
Okay, perfect. So, I'm just gonna leave it as is, and you guys can see it on the screen, hopefully. But I've been asked to come present to you the Oakland County Brownfield Program. Just give a basic overview of the Brownfield Program itself and the benefits as an economic development tool for communities. So, I'll start off with the actual act. Public Act 381 of 1996, is an act that authorized the creation of brownfield redevelopment authorities. Local units of governments are allowed to create their own authority. However, if they do not have their own, they can utilize a county-wide program, and that's why the Oakland County BRA was created in order to help those communities that do not have their own authority. And even in some certain circumstances, communities have their own brownfield authority, but wish to use the expertise of the Oakland County's Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. We can also help those communities as well. So what the act really does is it promotes revitalization, redevelopment, and use of mainly 4 different types of property throughout the state of Michigan. Obviously, the number one area of that brownfield was most people think of as actually contamination, or what's known as facility in the law. So a facility is the same thing as having contamination in the ground, and the contamination to be considered a facility is up above state standards for the amount of contamination allowed to be in the ground. Other type of properties that are allowed to be considered brownfield are functionally obsolete property, blighted property, and property under controllable land bank. And it gets a little bit more wide-ranging than that, because also historic buildings can be considered a brownfield to get some eligible activities to be paid for, reimbursed. And so that's the main component of the Financing Act, is allows developers to be reimbursed for pre-approved eligible activities using tax increment financing. So I'm not too familiar how familiar the board is with tax increment financing, but I have a slide that a little bit later on that shows a good diagram of how it's utilized. This is why I established a BRA, address adverse environmental conditions of property, promote economic growth, create jobs, address problem sites with communities. There's a lot of communities that they have sites that are just sitting there for decades upon decades because it's a known contaminated parcel of land and there's nothing much that can be done. Well, this program was established to help those properties get redeveloped and cleaned up. Clean up land that is underutilized or vacant, that's basically what I just described. Help property value deterioration of the subject property as well as the surrounding properties. You'll see that a lot, that depending on the size and scope of the land that is contaminated, it'll not only bring down that property value, but the surrounding area's property value as well. How do BRA projects utilize TIF? Well, TIF contributes to the economic growth and redevelopment by dedicating the increased tax value of the redevelopment after the cleanup to be reimbursed to the developer over a set number of years outlined in a brownfield plan. Generally, brownfield TIF is used to support redevelopment projects, providing a financing mechanism. Again, that's what Public Act 381 established. The concept of TIF is applied only to the redevelopment area of the brownfield plan, and that's a key thing to point out, especially if your community, which I know you guys do have your own DDA, or even communities that have their own corridor improvement authority or LDF. Brownfield TIF is parcel and project specific. So I got I think it's my last slide. I'll show you an example in the city of Novi where the city of Novi has a corridor improvement authority that encompasses hundreds of parcels, but the brownfield project we helped with there, Cluster Kerr Novi, just encompasses 3 different parcels. And so you'll be able to see what that really looks like in the whole layout of the CIA district. Throughout the duration of the brownfield plan, the original base tax dollars goes to the current taxing jurisdiction. It's only the increased taxable value after the redevelopment that's captured and being eligible to be reimbursed to the developer for eligible activities. The Oakland County BRA is one of, in my opinion, which is probably a little biased, but I think it probably holds true, is one of the best seasoned boards in all the state of Michigan. It was established in 2001. There's 7 board members. The members are appointed by the county executive and confirmed by the Board of Commissioners. We typically meet quarterly, but we also call meetings as needed. If projects come up or we have issues, we can call a meeting. I usually need about 2 or 3 weeks lead time in order to schedule a meeting, excuse me. So far, we have approved 23 brownfield projects. Now, this is the TIF slide, so if you're not too familiar with TIF, this gives you a good diagram to show what that really means. So the base property value of the project is what is not going to be captured. That's going to be going to all the taxing jurisdictions that it goes to currently. It's only that increased amount of dollars being captured. So to use, I always use round examples. So let's say your property's currently taxable value is $10,000. Well, that $10,000 will still go to the local taxing jurisdictions that it's going to currently. Then after the cleanup and redevelopment of a brownfield project, it goes up to $110,000. So it's $100,000 between the $110,000 and $10,000 original base value that's eligible to be captured by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority to reimburse to the developer to pay for the eligible expenses to clean up the property. So once the brownfield plan is completed, the taxing all 110,000, or at that point, depending how long the brownfield plan, it might be obviously a little bit more with appreciation, will all go back to the taxing jurisdictions that are outlined in your mills. Developer incentives. The incentive is a reimbursement of new taxes generated by the new investment. That's an important thing to point out, is it's reimbursement. So the developers coming in, they have a lot of risk going into it because they have to put the money up front. In brownfield projects, we've seen, and I'm me being government, so I don't see it firsthand, but what I've heard and talked to both developers and bankers is it's harder to get a loan, construction loan with a brownfield property just because of the known contaminants on there. So they're probably paying higher interest rate too. So there's a lot of risk going in on the developer side in order to do a brownfield project, just because it's reimbursed over X amount of years going forward into the future. The amount of reimbursement is based on the value of eligible activities that are paid for as part of the project. So a brownfield plan will basically give you the scope of the project, but also list the eligible activities that they envision they're going to run into on the property. And by that, I mean there's definitely tested being done as far as getting in the ground to test the dirt and the water to see what exactly needs to be done on the site. And so that's placed into the brownfield plan. And there's also a 15% contingency added to the brownfield plan. Just in case there is some overruns, there's a mechanism to pay for those overruns without having to go through a whole process of going through amendment to the brownfield plan, which will take another 45 to 60 days. So there is a contingency built into brownfield plans in case there is some overrun. Important thing to point out with that number, with the contingency built in it, a lot of times you'll see brownfield plans with somewhat big numbers in it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to be spent on the site. The only monies that are eligible to be reimbursed to the developer are monies they can prove were first eligible, and then with a detailed invoice and paid for with proof of payment that they turn into the Oakland County BRA. Now we take that information, we review it, but we also send it out to a third-party environmental consultant firm to review to make sure everything that's listed in the work invoices are in the brownfield plan and 381 work plans of the state. Make sure they're eligible, and then make sure they're paid. And once we get that sign off, we can go to the Oakland County BRA and get a confirmation of approval of the reimbursement request. So. Again, we'll use round numbers. Let's say a brownfield plan comes in at $800,000, but in all actuality, after they got in the ground and realized what they needed to do, it came out in at $550,000. It's only the $550,000 that's going to be reimbursed to the developer over that set number of years. So obviously, the developer must pay for the improvements on the site. They must pay their taxes each year in order to get the TIF money coming back to them, pay for their eligible expenses. The incentive amount is not guaranteed to the developer, so obviously they need to, spend the money, pay the contractors, and send it into us, get reimbursed. It is only realized if the redevelopment investment's achieved the anticipated increased property value. That goes without saying. Obviously, that once the redevelopment's done, there needs to be increase in tax base, which obviously most likely is the case anyways, especially if you're dealing with contaminated land that's vacant or underutilized as is. The amount of taxes reimbursed by the BRA to the developer cannot exceed the cost identified in an approved brownfield plan. And that's where your contingency comes in. So if it gets to the point where the development's even run through its contingency, it needs to go through an amendment process before we can spending $1 more than what's already been approved in the brownfield plan. And obviously an incentive, what I already mentioned before, is up to a maximum. The maximum can only be achieved if property value is raised enough to reimburse the developer. And with a brownfield plan, the longest you can go is 30 years. State statute says you can go 35 years if in the first 5 years there's no activity, but generally you're looking at up to a 30-year payback period. I've seen projects go full 30 years. I've seen projects go 5 or 6. I would say the average is probably in the teens, low teens. 5 years it takes to get reimbursed for a project. Eligible property, I kind of mentioned this before. Facility, functionally obsolete, blighted, and land bank properties. Facilities, contaminated property, functionally obsolete is if you have a level 3 or 4 assessor deem the property to be functionally obsolete. Can qualify as a brownfield. Blighted, you need the city to issue a letter saying that's a nuisance or active a nuisance for children, and then it can be considered a brownfield. All land bank properties, no matter where they're located, is considered a brownfield, and they're eligible for all eligible activities associated with the Brownfield Act. And you may ask, what are the eligible activities? And here they are right here in front of you. For all brownfield projects, you're looking at cleanup activity, relocation of public buildings, environmental insurance, development of a brownfield plan, demolition, and lead asbestos and mold abatement. That's what you're going to be looking at for any brownfields in your community. Or if you have a land bank property in your community, you might be eligible for the following activities as well. That's all the activities described above: infrastructure improvements and site preparation. So as you see, the bottom bullet point there is about the land bank properties. Any land bank property is eligible for all eligible activities. You don't have to be a core community in order to get all those if your property lies within a land bank. So our project's approved at Oakland County. The first step is contacting myself or others in the economic development or equalization departments to let us know about your project. The development team prepares a brownfield plan. Local unit of government passes a resolution in support of the project. And then the plan goes to the Oakland County BRA to get passed on their agenda. From there, it goes to our Board of Commissioners subcommittee meeting. For us, it's for economic development, it's the Economic Development Infrastructure Subcommittee of the Board of Commissioners for a vote. Then finally, it goes to the full Board of Commissioners meeting for a public hearing. That's where the public hearing happens for brownfield projects, for county projects, is at our Oakland County Board of Commissioners meetings, and also a final vote on the project. So once we get past that point and it gets approved, let's say it gets approved of the Board of Commissioners, that's eligible, they're eligible, the development's eligible for local only taxes. So that would be any city, village, or township, county, ISD. The only thing that are exempt from local only are the DDA, or excuse me, not DDA, the DIA, Detroit Institute of Arts, zoo, and any debt millages that the local unit of government may have at the current time. If the project is going for state school taxes, it's a little bit more of a process. There needs to be a 381 work plan put together that outlines everything in the brownfield plan just with a little bit more detail. Then that goes to two different areas of the state, depending on what they're going for. If it's environmental costs, it goes to the Eagle Department, State of Michigan Eagle. And if it's non-environmental, it goes to the MEDC to go to the MSF board to get approval for brownfield tax incentives. Generally, for most projects, the breakdown between local and state school taxes is about 50-50, roughly. Again, those are round numbers, and obviously every community is different. But so obviously adding state school taxes to the mix actually helps and gets the project paid back quicker in an amount of time. And here is the example I use for the city of Novi. You can see the green area is actually the whole encompassing corridor improvement authority. Then the red area is just our Sakura Novi project, which is a pretty sizable project. But you can see it's just a little blip when you consider the whole CIA district. So I know that's quick and a lot of information, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the brownfield program and the county's processes.
Okay, Brad, thank you for that. Basically, Oakland County, how does Oakland County get reimbursed? I mean, is there a set reimbursement that Oakland County takes for running the project?
Sure, we do have, as part of, if we run a project, we do have administrative line fee. We don't have anything up front. And generally, it's, depending on the size and scope of the project, it's generally between $5,000 and $15,000 per year. More so like the 5 and 10. It depends on how cumbersome we think a project may be. Obviously, if it's just, you know, a big office building with one taxpayer, it's a little bit easier than a housing community with 200 homes, just because of the tax, you know, tracking all the tax bills of the 200 homes.
And that's basically paid through the TIF also?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so
Can I ask Brad?
sure, absolutely.
That's per year, Brad?
Correct, for the life of the brownfield plan.
And you say about 5 to 15,000?
Yeah.
Somewhere between that? What
Generally,
is
yeah,
that?
yep. Again, I mean, if it's a 200-acre former landfill, it's going to be higher than that. But you know, if it's a typical brownfield project, yeah, it's between 5 and 15,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So basically, the whole idea, just in case you wonder what this is Oakland County would run the brownfield because we don't have an authority here in the township that could actually, are schooled enough to run that. So if we decide to allow the brownfield to go forward, the avenue that we would probably use would be Oakland County. So that's what this presentation's about. He's letting you know what they can do for us. So if there's any questions that you'd like to ask Brad, please.
Real
Now's
quick,
the time.
hi Brad, the $5,000 or $10,000 a year, would that be reimbursed through the TIF capture funds, or would the township be responsible for paying that?
Nope, it's the TIF cap through the TIF capture. So all the taxing jurisdictions would be paying their set amount per year to cover that cost.
So one other question for myself is the TIF capture that you're going to take for the 7 years or 10 years, whatever that is, that doesn't come back to the township. The only benefit is at the end of the project, we get the taxes from the new development. Is that the way you're looking at it?
As far as taxes go, for one benefit I generally say is, especially if it's contaminated, is the contamination gets cleaned up. But yeah, as far as tax dollars, you don't see any increased value. You still get that base value, but you don't see any of the TIF capture until the end of the project. So obviously, the sooner the project gets paid back, the sooner it gets back to the full amount for all the taxing mills.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Not for bad, but do we have like set properties that we've targeted for such a program or anything? Is that kind of where we're headed with this?
Well, the only one that we have has already come forward, and it's the one on the Ring Road.
Yeah, so I can answer that. So the Hudson Towns project, we anticipate they're going to apply for the brownfield to clean up the old, I forget the name of the...
Irwin Auto.
Yes, thank you. So we anticipate that coming. So that was the impetus to have Brad here tonight, was to give you a background on what that project looks like and their role in the process, and understanding that the township's role is not in administering the brownfield or things like that. It's whether or not you support that TIF capture being used for the project.
Well, they're not asking for that today.
No.
This is just
Not
an
asking for that today,
explanation.
correct.
Right, but that's the only one that has kind of come up in conversations, I guess.
We do get asked from time to time whether or not the township has a brownfield authority, but nothing has ever formalized where we've had to go down this road.
They did ask years ago about the Irwin parcel, but they're cleaning that up themselves. So,
I know we're not talking about that plan tonight, but did that plan change? Because I remember this question came up when they were here several months ago, and they were going to bank that material and cap it and keep it on site. Are they not doing that now? Or is that... are these
You talking
funds-
Irwin's? Irwin's are. This
to,
is,
the New Hudson
no,
project.
they're not, they want to remove it.
They want to remove it rather than, because they were going to use it.
That was Irwin's, was going to take the contamination out and bank it with the property.
Okay, I wasn't
These guys
sure if
don't
we
have the
had-
property.
Okay,
It has to be removed.
thanks.
I think that's 7 acres, I think is the, right, 7 acres?
About 7, yeah.
I think the contamination is probably only on a fraction of that though, right?
Maybe less than a quarter.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right? Yeah.
So basically, he's just letting us know what we could do if we decide to move forward with the brownfield. This is an avenue to actually administrate it.
Correct.
So it's always set to a certain payback amount, and then it just lasts for as long as it takes to capture that amount? Is that...
That is correct. The amount is established in the brownfield plan that, as I mentioned, the brownfield plan actually gets passed by the local unit of government as well as our Oakland County VRA and the full board of commissioners. So that number is set, and so is the number of years. With that said, it is an estimate. Obviously, a lot of things can happen over a set number of years, especially if you're going out, 20, 30 years. But those what do I want to say? draft TIF payback period is part of the brownfield plan. The number is concrete. Like I said, if it comes under, it comes under. If it's into that cap where it's going to go over, we need to do a brownfield plan amendment, which is basically going through the whole process again to add more money to the brownfield plan.
So I guess the other question I have, and I'm thinking of them as we're talking here, do you have a minimum? I mean, if this was a very small, like a quarter of an acre piece, I mean, is there any project that you wouldn't take on for administration because of the size of it, or is it open to any size?
Well, obviously, depending on if it's a smaller part, I always point to like the former gas station sites, the corner that we were just, a tiny little spot. Those are the most heavily contaminated. I've seen multi-million-dollar cleanups on those, small little parcel. But no, there's no specific size. Obviously, if it's smaller, for a development to make sense, they most likely have to piece some parcels together, which are contiguous or adjacent, which will also qualify them to be part of the brownfield project. So obviously, you need the redevelopment, the post-redevelopment to generate enough TIF to pay back what you're actually spending on cleanup costs. So that's all depending on the developer. We will entertain any project that comes to us as long as the local community is in favor of it.
Okay. Everybody satisfied? All right, Brad, I think everybody's good here. We appreciate the time and the presentation on the brownfield, and thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Please feel free to reach out to me through my county email. I hope somebody there can have it. I don't have it on my presentation. I apologize. Or I can give you my phone number too offline, and feel free to give me a call if you have any other questions that come up.
Okay, thank you, Brad. I think Amy you have all that information, right? Okay.
Probably, yep.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks.
All right. We're going to move on to call to the public. This is where non-agenda related items can be discussed. And, pardon me? Oh boy, I went right on. Come on up. I'm moving fast here. Come on up.
My name is Don Geroline. I live at 27917 Tremont Drive in New Hudson. And all my comments relate to the Lyon Township Public Library. Okay? The library board has hired Quinn Evan Architects to investigate the 3 township-owned properties that we had discussed before about expanding the library, and we had on the ballot several years ago. The 3 sites are the Mill River site, the current library and community center site, and the 11 Mile and Milford Road site. During their study, we appreciate the assistance we received from Brian Kesey and Leslie Zawada on this project. The library is holding an open house on Monday, February 21st at 6:30 p.m. to show the community the current library and present the findings of the study by Quinn Evans, and to give the community a chance to offer feedback on the site selection and information presented. There's a flyer, some flyers that are available at the entrance to the meeting, and this will be publicized, but we invite you all to come to the library on February 21st if you haven't been there for a while, and see the amount of space that we are working with, and you get a better understanding of why we are trying to expand and get a larger library.
What time was that again?
6:30 p.m.
6:30? Okay.
So you're all welcome to come to that. And the last thing is the library board would like to be on the agenda of your March 7th Township Board meeting to discuss their study results that Quinn Evans came up with and the recommendations and feedback that we get from all members of the community when they come to the open house. We're going to have an open question and answer session at the end of the meeting and ask the community for their input as to what they feel the library should be doing as far as expanding or where they could possibly get a larger library. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Don. That popped up on my calendar, your meeting. I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay, any more announcements? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to call to the public. Talk about non-agenda related items. Anyone have anything that's non-agenda related? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to reports. First report is the DDA. Amy?
I attached in everybody's packet an update on what's been happening in the last month, but I just wanted to hit a few key points and let you know that the DDA board hosted a special meeting on January 31st to talk about our priority listing. We had a great turnout. We had lots of engagement, some great feedback on the priority list. We're going to be taking that back to meet as an executive board to go over the results of it. And we're also going to be looking for feedback from Oakland County Main Street program, which we are in the process of joining right now to get some advice on that priority listing. Our goal is to be able to officially adopt a new updated priority list and incorporate that into a vision plan that will be redone this year. So we're very excited about that. The promotions committee is getting close to finalizing their 2022 schedule of events. We're tentatively looking at hosting a Music on the Grand series that'll take place at the United Methodist Church, tentatively set to begin in June. And we're also looking to add a fall special event that'll coincide with the Back to School Festival. And then we're going to be bringing back the Trunk or Treat program and the Lighting the Grand event this year. And both of those returning programs we're looking to expand the footprint on and add some new programs specifically to them. Overall, though, I'm just happy to say that the board that we have is really excited. They're really engaged, and they're looking forward to offering lots of great new things and having a productive year. So thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you, Amy. Any questions? All right, let's have some fun. Let's move on to the chief, fire.
You look so nice in your uniform. I love that.
Look at this guy. Who is he?
I know.
Wasn't
Wear that more
easy.
often.
Was not
I saw
easy.
Reggie, too. He looks so handsome.
So,
That is a clip-on tie, though.
clip-ons work just fine. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's a big night, not just for our community, but also for our fire department. And right before tonight's meeting, we swore in our 4 newest firefighters. I think I felt it go down here. And we look forward to long careers from each of these individuals. They were independently tested through EMCO, and so it was very objective, and they all earned their positions tonight. Thankfully, we have a lot of family and friends here to support them, and I want to start by thanking the board for making this happen as well, by bringing them on, and you'll be happy with the results for years to come. There are too many family members and friends to introduce, but with this swearing in complete, we still wanted to have the pinning ceremony. So somebody that has helped this firefighter get to where they are will be able to pin their badge and watch their successful career. So I would like to also just kind of special mention, the furthest one I know that came was Ross's brother Grant, who just drove in from Indiana today. I think surprised him, maybe? Okay. So anyway, with that, I'd like to introduce the firefighters, and I'm going to start with Emma Corticus and her family friend. Forget your dad. Thank you, Chief. You betcha. She was a student of mine years ago at OCC as well, and they grow up so fast. Next up is Ross Pajak. Ross. Come on. Okay. Yes, anybody. No formality. We're up against it. Make sure it's ready to go. Next up is firefighter Bradley Noyes. With his mom, sister, and his girlfriend will be pinning the badge. Sure. Oh, probably want that badge, don't you? And Nicholas Carnival. Yes. His father will be pinning the badge. So let's welcome our four newest Lyon Township career firefighters. So we still have a couple vacancies, officer vacancies, but we're still working on that, and we'll do it again. So that's all I have for the report, and I thank you again.
Well, I sure told you that was going to be fun. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Lyon Township Fire Department. Boy, is it nice to be in Lyon Township. We have the greatest. We always have. Thank you all. Appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Thanks for keeping us safe. All right, we're going to move on to the lieutenant. I think the lieutenant's got an announcement too.
I do. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, before we get started, I just was everyone presented with a copy of the Tryon report for last year's numbers? Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any questions for me? All right, so I have a special announcement. We had Detective Sergeant Ray Sharma. He was selected for a position in our Special Investigations Unit, and he took it, so we're very happy and pleased for him. But we're in luck here. Replacing him will be Detective Sergeant Anthony Brown. And a little bit of history about Anthony Brown. He's been a sergeant for about 16 years. He's got tons of investigative road patrol experience and corrections. He's just well-rounded. He's actually assigned to a special unit in D.C. to represent the Sheriff's Office. So we were lucky to have him, and I expect great things from him. And I don't have any major incidents to report, but I do have kind of a public safety announcement. And I learned a little bit about air tags. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but we've been receiving some bulletins lately, and I'd like the public to be mindful of what they're being used for. If you heard about them or haven't, basically what they are is Apple created these little tracking devices, right? They designed them so you can hook them up to your dog's collar or your luggage. But what we found is the bad guys are taking these devices and placing them on vehicles of people they like to stalk. They're also putting them on cars that they like to later come back and steal. So if you have the Find My Phone software on your phone, make sure that's activated, because what that will do, it'll tell you if a device is moving with you, and then that way you know you got potentially a problem. And if you're an Android or Google user, I believe it's called Blue Hound. Blue Hound is an app that Apple has created for the Google and Android phones to help locate any kind of Bluetooth connected devices following you. I believe that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Well, I don't like that.
No, I don't like it either. Creates more work for me. No, thank you guys.
Thanks a lot, Lieutenant. Welcome, Sergeant. All right, moving on to the Planning Commission.
Okay, we had 2 meetings in the month of January. The first one was January 10th. We held a public hearing on this new sign size text amendment, which is on our agenda for tonight. And the Planning Commission has talked about this, and they did give a recommendation for approval to the Township Board. We also had the Lyon Medical Center site plan review, which is the site right behind us. And we did, the Planning Commission also approved it with a joint condition between Republic and the Township and the applicant for some parking, and also contingent on a variance that they need from the ZBA. So that was all we had on that day. And then we had a very productive meeting on Monday, January 24th. We only discussed the master plan, but Brian did an absolute fabulous job. I think we went over a lot of areas in our township, and I think it lasted a lot longer than I thought, but Brian did a marvelous job, and we talked about a lot of things at that Monday night meeting, and it was nice because it was the only thing we had, and we really concentrated on the areas that we wanted to discuss. So, didn't you think it went well?
Yeah.
I did.
We got a lot done.
And actually, I even learned more than I thought I would. It was good. It was really good. Some areas that I didn't think of. So, that concludes my report. If there's any questions.
Okay. We'll move on to the ZBA, Lise.
Well, first off, our February 22nd meeting has been canceled because there are no applicants. And on January 18th, we had a request for a variance from section 16.06C regarding the size of a wall sign, and the applicant requested a 102 square foot variance. That was denied as it did not meet the required standards, and it should be noted that it would not have even met the proposed new sign ordinance amendment that we're discussing tonight. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Lise. Moving on, Park Board. Robert, anything?
Nothing beyond our agenda item later.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the water. The water is still in getting the softening back into the building, and we still have some back-ordered parts, and I think they're going to be back-ordered for a while. I know a few of you have talked to Ed, and he's let you know that they are back-ordered, and it's still, we can go look at the water plants anytime you guys want to see the progress. So just let me know. Other than that, there's really not much to say that they're working on it. They've put in basically about everything that they have. They're waiting on parts. And he did let me know that once this thing gets up and running, okay, this is a brand new system to the state of Michigan, so DEQ is going to be really picky about it. So it may take a little extra time to get them on board completely when this thing's up and running. It's brand new to Michigan.
John, didn't you say that Eagle is going to withhold permits for the second plant until
Yes.
this one's up and running too?
They
Even though they
wanna
already
make sure-
approved the first plant,
Yep.
and this is an exact copy of it. They're going to
Exact
continue to hold us up
Yep.
to when we have all the funds and all, I think it's absurd.
It
You've
is.
either approved it or you haven't. So we have a duplicate copy that they won't approve, so they're going to have us now bringing on one plant in the middle of a watering season. and we're going to have mixed water. We're going to have
Yep.
all iron filtrated water, but we're going to have a mixed batch of hard water and softened water.
It'll be
because
much, much better. Let's
It
put it
will,
that
but
way.
it's
It'll
really
be
frustrating.
100% better.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you,
Come up
I
with
think...
reasons every time we ask to delay us
Oh,
in this
DEQ,
process.
that's
We're
the DEQ.
2 years behind where we should be because of them.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But the good thing is once this first plant gets turned on, it is going to be instantly better water throughout the township. So, you know, it will be.
And it is excellent water now, but it's just frustrating that we're not done with all this because we should have been, and we could have been.
Okay, yeah, I agree. No, I agree.
I know you
I've been
do.
living it. I know what it's like. It's
I
it's
just show
been
up and
rough.
complain once a month. You do it. You deal with it every day.
I'm living it.
Thank you.
Okay, Dave, you want to add anything? I know that you had some numbers you wanted to share.
Yeah,
so-
sure. I have a few numbers we put together for the month of January, what we did, and then I have a number of total inspections that were done last year. What we're doing right now is putting together a better look at what we've done over the last 2 years and kind of how the monies we take in goes up and down. But even the numbers when it's down, that just means we're working on everything that's already come in. So, you know, by the time it goes through all the boards it has to go through, you know, they're ready to build and everybody is in a big hurry and it goes. So last year we had a total of 8,114 inspections between the inspectors, which comes from several jobs. You know, some of the jobs you get a job, there's 2 inspections, and then say for a residential home, it can be 10 inspections done, and that doesn't even count re-inspects, you know, so the building department had 4,311 of those inspections. Electrical was 1,287. Mechanical did 1,406, and then the plumbing inspector did 1,110. So last month, just to sum everything up, we gave 13 permits for a total of value of the permits was $109,734. So that was for the month of January, which is going to be kind of on the high side. You know, and then it kind of goes down a little bit and then ramps up again. It just always happens. It's always happened. So in the total value of those 13 permits is $13,089,587. So that was because we've had quite a bit of the commercial stuff coming in. So I'm sure you're probably all aware that we have several residential developments that are ready to open this year. And things would go faster if there was more workers out there. I mean, it's stuff just sits around, it seems forever, and then of course this is the material chain and that. But so the building department's keeping very busy. We've been a little short-handed and kind of getting backed up, but we got to deal with the daily stuff first, and then when you get extra time. So everything's going smooth. It's a nice office to work in now. Very nice.
Well, thank you, Dave. Is there any questions for the building department?
Yeah.
It's kind of nice that Dave comes in now, and I'd like him to give you some of the reports to show just how busy they stay. I mean, it is extremely busy with the department, which is a good thing, I guess. All right, that concludes the reports for tonight. We're going to move on to unfinished business, and we have 3 second readings of ordinances, and I don't believe any language has changed.
I'll move the adoption of ordinance 02-22.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, going on to the second one.
I'll move the adoption of ordinance number 03-22.
I'll support with the addition of section 6, just updating the date to 2022.
I accept your friendly amendment.
You good with that second?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and our third.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 04-22 by updating section 8 to 2022.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's great, thank you. We'll move on to our first item in new business, which is a consideration of a possible approval for the proposal to hire TerraTech for a complete water rate and capital charge study. I don't know if I'm hoping you all had a chance to read through the proposal that was sent by Mr. Cooper-Wasser. He is here tonight to answer any questions. I would really like to hire them because they've already went through our sewer study, and it's going to be a hand-in-hand kind of thing, and I think that this is why this proposal was so good in cost. The reason we want to do this is to defend our water rates in case we ever were taken to task on them. And it's a super important study, and it's a lengthy study, and you can see as you read through this, it's pretty involved. And I don't know if you'd like to ask Mr. Cooper-Wasser any questions. He is here in the audience, and I don't know if you guys are good with it, or...
I do have one, just clarifying it in the exclusions. It's saying that the update of Lyon Township wastewater rates and capital charges is excluded. I just want to clarify the meaning of that the study will still come back with, you'll have basically a range of saying these are what are defensible rates, and that's just saying you're not going to tell us exactly what the number should be, and we have to go through the process on our own to actually change it, right?
Well, you're talking about the sentence regarding not including the wastewater rates.
I'm sorry. Did I? Oh, you. Never mind. I am sorry. I read the word water and just went right past.
Right. Is that clear now that we're
yes,
not?
That is
this
totally
is
clear now because we
water.
already addressed that. So
okay.
Apologies.
John, I'll just say that I was surprised that the study was this reasonably priced,
Yes.
and Mr. Cooper-Wasser has an excellent reputation. He's worked for us in the past, so I'm in full support of this proposal and look forward to getting the work done.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions about this? It's super important, and...
I think it's needed.
Thank you.
Well, that's good. You've done this so good, there's no questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes,
Are you ready?
please. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposals submitted by Cooper-Wasser for the water rates and capital charge study proposal in the amount of $22,000.
I'll support.
Oh,
Go for it, Michelle.
Sean, that's fine.
The support?
Actually, wait like 2.5 seconds and then...
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and support to approve the proposal. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vic.
All right, we're going to move on to the consideration to approve the resolution to extend outdoor sales through March of 2023. And this is just really super important for our businesses, and this is a very simple thing to do for them. And I would just love if we could get that through.
Hey, John, is there any, way to make this a permanent thing as opposed to like doing this every year? Is that something that we could do, or if this board would be interested in doing it?
Yeah, amend the ordinance. Right?
Yeah, I think you'd have to amend the ordinance.
I was actually going to ask the same thing, if we could ask the Planning Commission to look at what pieces of this to make permanent or how to incorporate that, because we've been extending it. It's been great. I think people enjoy the outdoor environments and will want to keep them around. But
So I think the key to answer them questions tonight is, yes, we can do that, but I think we should get this done and keep them going forward.
Yeah, right.
But I do agree with that. I think we should try to work this out to be permanent. I like it.
Yeah, who would have guessed we'd be extending it? I think this might be the third time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This gives them another year, and you know what? It's good. We'll have that time to do what we, if we can change it.
Then I can make a motion to approve resolution 2022-06.
I'll support.
Okay, you good? You need any more?
no, I was just going to support, but
Oh,
Michelle
okay.
did first. So.
All right, we have a motion and support to extend it through March of 2023. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Perfect. Thank you, guys. That's important. All right, now we've got some more ordinance amendments. The first one is the solid waste collection and disposal. Anybody have any questions about that? Did you read through that and understand why we're asking for the change?
This is just an update. That ordinance had not been updated for a really long time.
So it's just an update.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything they want to talk about that, or can we go ahead and move that to first reading?
Make a motion to move ordinance number 05-22 to second reading.
Okay.
I'll support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the next one is to the zoning regulations on the signs, and I think that one might take a little conversation. Brian, do you want to explain what you've done there?
Sure, thank you, John. The Planning Commission and really the ZBA has dealt with a few requests also regarding the size of signage in the township, both monument signs and wall signs specifically in commercial and industrial areas. And so we went through and we did a little bit of research on surrounding communities and what is and is not allowed for maximum areas, maximum heights of signs, things like that. So we've made some modifications here, or we're proposing several modifications here to address that. For example, wall signs, we're going from a maximum of 48 square feet to a maximum of 65 square feet, which brings us in line with Wixom, brings us in line with Novi, brings us close to Wixom, who has substantially larger wall signs that they permit. But it gives our businesses a bit more flexibility, especially when we're talking about these pretty substantially sized industrial buildings that we're approving lately. So that's helpful for them without really impacting any aesthetic character of the community. You know, these buildings are set back a ways, they're really large, they're still subject to our lighting requirements, they're still subject to any of the bare bulb illumination, shielding, things like that, so no real changes there. We've also made some modifications here to specifically call out different flag sizes that might be permitted based on the pole heights. So these large poles like we've got over at Bell Tire, a flag that could be pretty substantially large compared to something that's at ground level. So we've incorporated those. And then we've also had a season of political signs that people have been able to place in the yards. And so we are proposing a change here to, I see a typo, a change to 32 square feet in total that somebody can place in their yard for temporary signage. And we're suggesting that we remove the maximum number there. So we're saying you could have as many signs as you want in total, so long as your square footage does not exceed 32 square feet. So whereas previously we had a 24 square foot limit, and each sign had to be 6 square feet. We had several instances during the fall when people wanted like an 8x4 sign in their yard. So, while we heard objections about the content on them, that's not what we're regulating here. Nobody really complained about the larger sign in the yard. So that's something that we thought was fair. Other than that, the actual content or the types of signs that were in the ordinance before, based on the update that we did a couple years ago now, they have all stayed the same. Again, we're just trying to give some flexibility in terms of size and height of these signs. I can take any specific questions.
Okay, Brian, I'm probably the worst person to deal with signs because I like signs and I like them big and bold and I like people to see them and understand where they're going. So I think any change to this thing to make it easier to put a nice sign is good. I don't know, I guess it's gone pretty far, but I don't know, Lisa, has a lot of this been covered on the variances that you're seeing?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big deal.
It has been, the last few times that we've had these cases, they've come in and the size of the building is a lot larger today than the buildings, from 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so they're trying to have a sign, like NLB is a perfect example of where they had a situation, they had some screening issues where it was hard to see the actual building name or the sign on the building, and then some directional signs. So we've been getting applicants coming in, and we were really pleased with what the Planning Commission did in determining the size.
Okay.
So we were asking for this to go back to the Planning Commission so we could find a reasonable size so that we don't have variance requests coming in every month just for this one particular type. But yeah, we were all
So
very
this meets what you think would be
Yeah.
acceptable?
Yes.
See,
I
that's
think-
important.
Yes, I think that, it kind of avoids the problem too, where it's not going to be a giant sign on a giant warehouse, but
Okay.
it does accomplish what it is that we have been running into.
Just as an example, sorry to piggyback on that though, the NLB sign is 65 square foot for that wall sign that they just put up. So that would be the size, the max size you would see on any structure moving forward.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead. Anybody?
Real quick, Brian, is the typo on page 6 in the bottom?
Yes, the 24 to 32.
I was actually looking at the maximum
48.
area where it says 4865 square feet. It probably should be just 65,
Just
48.
65. Thank you. We'll correct that for the second reading.
Yeah, I appreciate the work of the Planning Commission and Brian and the ZBA working kind of to share some of their thoughts back through the process with the group so they can kind of right size signs. I don't love signs as much as John, but
I do love them.
if there's big buildings and they're set back from the road, it does need a reasonable sign so it can be seen. And I think actually, if the sign's too small, it could look odd on a building too, as crazy as that might sound. So
Tell me
we
how
should
much you
hope-
like signs next time you're looking for something in a very populated area.
My phone tells me where to go, so I just drive.
Yeah, usually the wrong
so,
place.
Yeah, as long as it's not like off a boat launch, I'm fine. But yeah, I think that this should just kind of square us away for quite some time now.
Yeah,
So-
I think it was a good amendment. I really
Yeah.
do.
So thank you to you, Brian, and to the Planning Commission, Patty. If you could.
I will.
Did you want me to extend your thanks to the ZBA too, Sean?
Yeah, I didn't quite get there. But,
Please.
Yeah, I was not going to be so kind to you, but that's not nice. I'm sorry. My New Year's resolution was to be nicer to you, Lisa, and I failed. So it didn't last very long.
January 2nd.
Okay.
Brian, you mentioned on the yard signs, the maximum number was, the maximum size is 32, right? That was the one typo you mentioned?
Yep, that's the one that I caught. Yep.
Okay, and then my other question on page 9 about banner signs, temporary banner signs, it says all banners may be at least 32 square feet. Is that supposed to be 32 square foot maximum, or is it that the way it sounds is it's minimum?
You said on page 9?
12.
Oh, I might have wrote down the wrong page number. Temporary.
There's banners. Yeah, I'm looking at 9, it's not there.
No, it's not on 9.
It's 12.
Banners.
12, I think.
At least there are banner signs on 12. I don't know if that's the.
It says maximum area 32 square feet.
Yeah.
So what was the question though, Chris? I'm sorry.
So I think the question was, it said at least 32 square feet, and I think that should have been the, I'm sorry, it's on the bottom of page 7, not 9. I'm going to typo in my notes.
Oh. Maximum purposes.
It says all such banners may be at least 32 square feet.
Oh, that's in case somebody is trying to put a banner on a small building. So
Okay.
the regulation there is saying 10% of your building facade, but if you've got a very small building, we're still setting a minimum that you can have a banner.
Okay, so somebody with a small
Yeah.
one would
Yeah.
not be limited to, okay.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense then. Thank you for that. That's all I have.
Okay. Anyone else? Or is the motions in order?
Make a motion to move ordinance number 06-22 to second reading with the changes discussed tonight.
I'll support that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're going to move on. Ratification approval of labor contract between Lyon Township and IAFF Local 5309. Chief, you want to bring us in? Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Hi, Greg.
Hello again. So this has been a kind of a long educational process, and with us tonight is Greg Schultz, who has been representing Lyon Township. Nate Sturos and Brian Holzheimer are here from the IAFF Local 5309, and we have before you is a tentative agreement, or TA, and I'll let Greg answer any questions that you guys may have as far as where we go from here, or he can give you an overview of the process.
Good evening, everyone.
Do you want me to start with the question?
Go right ahead.
I don't have any.
We asked plenty.
I don't have any. I've answered no.
So then real quickly, and then any questions, I think we began bargaining about a year and a half.
Yeah. 14, 16 months.
Yeah, so the first contracts are tough because you got to put everything together, not just certain issues. And I think we all got an education. I think you now have 3 labor attorneys on your board, and maybe one in your fire department as well. But we did. I mean, it wasn't the easiest contract we ever negotiated. But what we were trying to avoid was the state has what we call Act 312 binding arbitration for public safety officers, and it becomes a real costly item. And in the end, both sides realized that. Both sides came together. We reached an agreement. The union has already ratified it, so all we need to formalize the agreement. It's a 3-year agreement. I understand, and I saw some typos and hyphens we need to add. We can do that. We'll clean this up. This is kind of what we call the tentative agreement. Once we finalize that, we'll make a signature copy, and everyone will sign it. And actually, once you guys vote, if you vote in favor of it, it's in place through December of 2024. So you won't have to see me, hopefully, too much until then.
Thank you, Greg.
Happy to answer any questions. Good to meet those of you who I haven't yet.
Yeah. Anybody? Anybody have any questions?
I have a question, and then I have, I'm not sure if it's the same hyphens that you have noticed, but.
Yeah, we sent them a whole bunch of stuff. We just highlighted.
I just have a question on page 21.
Sure.
Regarding item E on page 21.
Right.
Talking about holidays, and my question is, it says 40-hour employees will be out of work, and it identifies, well, actually several of the sections, the holidays. What about days that are closed due to weather?
Well, that does become, I don't think we addressed it in here,
We did not.
Okay.
But the practice has been that, if it's an administrative employee, which a 40-hour would be, then if they'd be following the same rules or guidelines that the township has. As far as if they go home, then they would be part of that.
Okay. Because it just says that, and all the holidays above and any additional holidays observed by the township. So that's like if there's a new holiday that's a federal holiday, is that where it's encompassed?
Yeah, that's kind of why we have this generic language in there.
Okay.
As you all know, the regular firefighters, the full-timers who work a 56-hour schedule, they really don't have holidays off. So we always have a provision in the contract to address the 2 or 3 or 4 40-hour employees. And that's what we always end up. This issue's come up before other places, and they end up following what the general employees do on weather days or if there is a new holiday created.
Okay. And then is now the time for commas and hyphens, or is it later?
You can bring me now, or if you just want to email me, we'll hold off to get any changes, whatever you guys prefer.
I can.
I do have one highlighted copy of corrections. And
all right.
So
well, then I can send them to whomever. I don't think I need to tell you that in line 9 of page 1 there's a comma missing. But I'll send my corrections to you.
You can send them to me, and
okay.
I can make sure.
We'll hold off till we hear from you before we finalize it all. But
oh my gosh, no! Then I don't want to.
Well, I mean, it's good. I mean, it'll take a couple days, 3 days to get this.
And on page 34,
addressing the asterisk, you'll take all that information out. I know that was prior.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That was part of our, yeah, that's our intent, I'm sure.
Okay.
Well, you'll agree. Take out the language that doesn't matter anymore.
Yep.
It's irrelevant. Might as well clean it up now.
Any other questions?
I have a couple.
Looks really good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just in general, in section 4, the dues deduction, so I'm reading that as the township is responsible for collecting the dues for the union. Was that ever discussed in terms of like how much time that's going to take the employee who's doing that, and if there's any compensation for that, or is that a standard thing that's usually done with the unions?
So, answer your second question first, yes, it's standard, other than in public schools where the law changed and doesn't allow employers to do it. Every contract that I've ever seen in the public sector has it. But it's funny that you asked that, because we did have those discussions. That was a concern of ours. It was I'd say an issue that we wanted to have discussions with the union on. In the end, we realized that to get a contract, we were going to probably have to do what others had done. So hopefully they'll be able to work out minimal time spent. I think once you do it, it becomes pretty ordinary. Clients of mine that have been doing it for 50 years don't even think twice about it at this point.
Okay, so it sounds like it's pretty simple to do. And
hopefully. If you have the right payroll system, it should be simple.
Okay. And then on page 7, Article 7, Item B, discusses that the township board, or the township will be notified of the names of the executive board. That's a little ambiguous. I was just curious if who at the township is notified. Is that you, Ken? Is that Supervisor Dolan, or how does that?
Yeah,
work?
that's probably a fair question. I think we tend to overgeneralize, try to keep these things down a little bit, but I would read the township as being either the fire chief or the township supervisor.
Okay.
But the important thing, again, for that provision is that we know who is allowed to be off work to investigate grievances, things like that. So that's why it's so important for us to know.
Okay.
Who those.
And that probably answers my next one too. Like Article 10 was the talking about the liaison between the township and the union, who that is. It just says, the township shall have a liaison. So I'm assuming that would be the same kind of thing. It's either fire chief or supervisor or somebody like that that's going to be the
Yeah, I think it
liaison.
should be there. I don't see it in Article 10.
Article 10A. I'm sorry, it's on page 8. Sorry, talking about the be the safety committee. It says the union. So that.
Yeah. It says the union and the township / fire chief.
Okay, so it would be. I guess is that one and the same?
Yeah, I think for the safety committee, I don't know if you've done that yet.
No, and I've talked with Nate, the union president, and we're trying to set up probably a meeting this Thursday to kind of go through this and establish guidelines and expectations. So this is kind of the first step, and then we're going to have an open communication, including the safety committee.
A lot of times when we're putting together a first contract, we take a similar community contract, and so we're not starting from scratch. So a lot of this comes from a couple we used was Rochester Hills, I think, and Highland Township. We have recently done some contracts with them. So it does take some growing into the contract, and I'm sure, I don't know that you thought about it. For a safety committee, I would think that's usually the chief involved, and of course, if you want to invite the township supervisor, he could of course join in.
Yeah, it's not a concern of mine because I know we'll address it on both sides.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. Anyone else?
John, I just want to say really quick, thanks to all the folks involved in both groups. I mean, like you said, it's the first contract and it took some time, but glad we're coming to an end here and we can all move ahead. And I appreciate everyone's work, everyone involved.
Greg was amazing. Chief too, really. He guided us very well. It was nice to work with him, first time I've ever met him. And we enjoyed it, actually. So.
Thank you, that's kind.
Okay. Good. Well, if everybody's in favor, then a motion would be in order.
Let's do it.
I will move the ratification of the labor contract between Lyon Township and the IAFF Local 5309.
I will support that.
Okay, we have a motion and a support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah.
You're through it.
I'm so happy it's over.
Thank you again for everything for the last.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, we're going to move on. Discussion and...
Can I thank you for your support. Appreciate it. The fire and police service is just a different type of entity. We deal with shift work, things like this, the natures of the job, the dangers, and everything else. This contract will go towards recruitment efforts, retention efforts. In this day and age, in these businesses, it's unprecedented, just the manpower shortages that is going on right now, puts stress on everybody, all factions of life and everything else. So just making this move just sets this township and the fire department for the next 5, 10, 15 years of the growth of the township and the inevitable growth of the fire department, of getting quality personnel, keeping quality personnel, to keep the fire department as professional as it is now and to maintain that. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right, I always get ahead of myself, don't I?
All right.
All right.
Yay.
All right, we're going to move on to our item of discussion and possible approval of Resolution 2022-07, terminating the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. And I think the reason we got to this point is because basically that we're having trouble keeping people on it and moving things forward. So I think that we hoped that we could kind of regroup this situation and bring it back in-house and kind of work it maybe from either a committee or, try to get a better handle on things and move it forward. And, we've had many discussions, and I know it's been tough, and that's why I got here. So that being said, it's open for discussion. I mean,
Sorry, I was just saying, I know Chris had some things at some point. I don't know if you want him to go first or if you want to have some discussion up here first.
Well, you guys can say, if you guys want to ask the questions and talk a little bit before we do, and then Chris can come up. Absolutely. You can come up now, Chris, if you want.
I mean, if you guys, I don't know what kind of session you want. If you just want me to answer questions, I can save the speech. It's up to you. I don't mind.
Well, let's find out what's going on in the minds of the board, because I don't know that.
No, that's fine. That's why I'm volunteering it too.
Okay. So go ahead, Patty. You want to go ahead?
Well,
and start?
I spoke to Chris when, Carol put the resolution together, and Chris had mentioned that maybe we failed a little bit to the park committee. And so I've been thinking about it, and I thought, well, what people don't understand is we're really short-staffed at the hall. And this board, at the last budget, starting in January, they gave us permission to hire quite a few new positions, which we are desperately needing. And we've started, so that's another exciting part. We got Amy. We're looking for a new person at the front desk, and so we can move Mel back to where she's going to be. I'm looking for a new assistant. Michelle's looking for another new assistant. And we were thinking that maybe we really need someone in the park, or maybe it's someone part-time in the park. So really, the park committee has really and Chris mentioned this to me, in all fairness, he didn't have a point person to go to because we're all so busy. And so we thought, well, we'll just bring it back in-house. Maybe this summer we can figure it out and work on maybe getting some part-time help in there, some full-time help, something. We need help. It's I know we gave you guys the money to get the ice rink, but what happened to the ice rink? Why didn't we get the ice rink? I can't really answer that, but I don't know what happened to that.
On the ice rink, I came back here several times and got agreement from the board that it wasn't the right time. But
Yeah, but the last conversation we had, Robert, was in a virtual meeting, and we talked about it, which I believe was a September, October meeting. And I said, just come to me, and we'll talk about it, and we'll get it moving, and I haven't heard from you.
we had another update on it since then.
When?
I don't remember the month. I'm sorry, I
Not
don't
with
have that
me.
in my notes. No, at this, in one of these meetings. I
I
brought
don't
up.
remember that. But anyway, I
Well,
don't want to
I'm
get
not
into
saying
arguing
this is
about
that. I'm
that.
just saying,
Yes.
so there's some kind of disconnect. Maybe we just need to bring it back in-house, figure it out, and then we can always regroup with another park committee, their advisory, which we appreciate. I don't know how successful the movie night was. But maybe we could get somebody hire somebody that's got a little park or rec experience that could help the advisory committee. That's my thought process, but it's not working, and Chris even told me it's not working.
But it doesn't have to be an advisory board that meets and doesn't, I mean, it could be friends of the park, and friends of the park could put things together and do the same thing that the advisory committee could do and come in and present things, hey, we'd like to do this, this, and this, and it would be the same thing. I mean, and that could just be volunteers. I mean, it wouldn't have to be assigned people.
Carol, if there, or John, if there were a Friends of the Park kind of committee, then there wouldn't be a requirement to have a particular number of members, is that correct?
No, wouldn't.
They have to have a quorum.
Right, in its
Even have a
existing
meeting.
iteration, it has to have a quorum and a certain number of members. So if it were just a Friends of the Park group.
Just creating like a 501c3, you mean?
No,
Yeah,
just a
kind of a
committee,
thing.
like, an informal committee. If
Like a volunteer.
Established by the board?
Because, I had a lot of experience when I was on the park, when it was just the park committee. And if we didn't have, we didn't have to have a set number of people present, so we were still able to continue with business, even if we didn't have, there was no quorum necessary, because it was like, okay, well, here's 3 people who showed up to this meeting, let's
Well,
meet, and then make a request to the board, and
And I
all of
think-
the requests were taken care of that
I
way.
think the significant difference is whether it's a group of people that get together by themselves to form this versus the board establishing the committee. I think when the board establishes the committee, then you get into the quorums. For example, I think your bylaws, I think you have 9 members.
I do have, when we get to the resolution, I have some
Well, but I'm
amendments to
saying,
it.
so,
It's not
so
9
actually,
anymore, but.
Yeah.
you haven't met the quorum for any of your meetings. So, but if you're just doing something a group of people decide to do that's not township established, I don't think you're subject to the Open Meetings Act or quorum requirements or anything else.
We had actually gone down that road at one point when we were working on the 11-mile site. I know it was myself, John Bell, a couple other people that were working on, we had started it as a funding subcommittee of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, which then was in theory going to be spun off into a Friends of the Park organization, but that kind of fizzled out as well around the times that development plans stalled.
Well, I don't know. Seeing this on here, it was kind of disheartening because I always liked the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. I know they've struggled with finding and keeping members, and I just, I look at it and I'm like, what could we do to get members and get them to stay? I mean, did we do enough to advertise vacancies? Did we do enough to get the word out? I mean, advertising in our monthly newsletter or even on any type of media, whether it be social media or the newspaper or something. And I keep hearing back and forth as we're too busy with staff, but then we don't have enough, staff is too busy, but if we bring this in-house, how's that really going to help? I mean, I guess I just assumed that the Parks and Rec Advisory Board would be doing a lot of that legwork and then come to somebody.
We need help.
Yeah, and come to somebody to do it. So, I mean, I'd prefer to, try and keep this thing going, and maybe it is a temporary hiatus for a couple months until we find people, until somebody gets hired that can take on more of the park role or something. But I don't know. It seems like it's more of a defeatist type of resolution, and I don't really like it. But I'm listening. So.
Well, we can't put this on Melanie. This is so not fair.
No, I didn't
We
say that.
can't.
It's
I mean,
just-
there's no, that girl has no more room. It's just not fair. So we need to hire someone. And we're telling you that. And Chris brought it to my attention. We didn't give them the tools to be successful. Well, we got to figure that out.
And he does call and ask
Right.
Melanie, and Melanie's
Yes,
just too
and
busy. She can't do it
I mean,
anymore.
it's not fair to Chris, who gives us time. It's not fair to Robert, who sits on the committee, who's the liaison to the board. We just gotta figure it out, and that's all. I mean, I'm just saying, maybe we need to do that to regroup. Whatever, I mean, it's just, we need help. And they need direction. And for, whatever reason, it's not being successful. So sometimes you gotta take a step back and figure it out and go forward. I don't know what that exactly is, but it's not working now, and it's really not fair. And Chris mentioned, he takes time away from his kids and his family. If it's not working, then we need to hire someone to make it work, or to help them make it work.
What's involved to go back to the committee format that we had instead of the advisory board?
Just have to change the bylaws effectively if we want to alter the structure and the way that it operates.
I mean, I know that when we were just the park committee, it was, as opposed to the advisory board, I don't know why it went, I don't recall why we made the switch.
I was on the park committee for 10 years.
I did my best to go back through
It
and
was
try
just a
to
committee.
piece together
We
the
just met.
history.
We just met, we worked hard on the park, though.
So a committee becomes somebody that's very passionate about putting things forward. I mean, that's all it is, and, right? You get a committee of people that's put together, that's just their own want to do things, and bring it to the board's attention. And this board has always been behind everything. I mean, really, there's been very few things that's ever been brought to this board that they've ever said no. I'm just saying. Everybody wants that thing to do well. I mean, you know that.
No, I've not said that the board had actively worked against or denied things that were reasonable that were asked for, but I think as Chris will probably touch on here, it was more to get to the point of having a ready to hit the ground project to actually be implemented. That's where we were running into issues with access to the proper expertise and information and whatever other resources may have been needed to get it to
What
that
does
point.
that mean?
Well, okay, for example, in January 2021, starting at that point, we no longer had anyone from McKenna or anyone from staff or consultants attending our meetings, which at that time I think left Chris a little blindly trying to swim without any assistance. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about there.
If there was something that you needed the planners to work on, why wouldn't you just call them and ask them about it?
It's not even a specific project. It's you take a group of volunteers, and maybe I have some blame particularly in this, but you look at, if I weren't there or in general, you've got a bunch of just regular citizens that are saying, hey, I want to help with this. They don't have training and expertise in parks and recreation programming. They don't have expertise in the way municipal government has to operate.
But you're never going to get that.
Right, but that is why it's important to have support from the township in those meetings. The park committee, historically, when Lisa and I served on it in its previous incarnation, had at the time that was when we were under a manager structure, and so we had Chris Olson.
He didn't come to those meetings.
He was about.
No, he didn't.
He was in a handful. I looked back through the minutes. He was in
like one.
Okay. Well, we had even if we didn't have Olson, we had Duzen there.
He didn't come to those.
Why am I seeing him in my minutes then, Lisa?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember Dues in there. but maybe he came to some after I left.
Yeah, I don't remember the planners coming to the park.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe
Maybe
it was after I
I
left.
mean, it was,
So,
but,
oh, sorry.
yeah, no, yeah, go ahead, Sean.
So for years, we've been talking about the need for a full-time, 40-hour-a-week planner here
Yep.
to handle planning. And it's something that I push, and not because I don't love Brian, because I do, but because this township has long needed a full-time staff person to handle a lot of this stuff. And this is the kind of thing that would fall under that umbrella, would fall under that job description. So we don't need a part-time person, we need a full-time person that's going to handle this and a whole lot more things that just, I don't want to say don't get handled, because somebody handles it. But John, if you're handling it, you're the supervisor. You're trying to be the supervisor, not all these other things. Same for you, Patty, same for you, Michelle. I mean, you get to be the three things that you're elected to be. And too often, for too many years in this township, things have just fallen to whoever's available to take care of them, and that's not necessarily ideal. Maybe it's unfair. And I mean, I think that's where we're at. So if we're talking tonight about a reboot of sorts where we take a step back and put this on a hiatus for a few months while we come up with a plan, I'm in favor of that, but I think our plan goes beyond just having someone throwing a few hours at this a week. It goes to something a whole lot more than just Parks and Recreation, in my estimation. So that's something that I would be interested in looking at over the next few months, and it's something that's been kicked around here for a very long time.
Good, you can have that up.
I tried once. I'll do it again. I'll just reprint it all. I'll change the dates.
There you go.
And I think we actually finally have a reasonable budget approved to hire somebody who would take the job for that pay. So we will hopefully be successful. But Nate stood up here and said it. It's not just police and fire. Everybody's going to have a hard time finding people who are willing and able and interested in taking a lot of these jobs. We're lucky to have who we have and lucky to attract who we've attracted. And it's a great place to be, but it's really hard right now.
Difficult times.
It is,
question.
yeah, for sure.
So I think that's what we're looking at, is basically just getting getting this thing refigured. I mean, and I think I don't think anybody's looking to disband it and send it away. I think it's a refigurement. I mean, we need to figure how this thing can move forward and be efficient.
Right, well, that's what I guess I asked for last month, was to have this discussion, and I would like to move forward with it. I see the message of saying we're terminating this as just we're just not going to do it, as opposed to right now as is, we're at a point where we can't have a meeting. Right, so something needs to change, but I don't think the answer is, well, let's just get rid of it without our plan figured out of what the new going forward should be.
Sometimes dissolving something forces the plan forward. It becomes kind of, I mean, I don't think we need an advisory board per se. I think we need a committee that's very dedicated to the park. And it could be the parks. There could be more than one if we get all these other ones put together. But that's just mine.
We could. My concern there is that we would become the extreme minority in our peer communities in not having a body like this.
Yeah,
Milford has one, the city has one, Northville has one, Salem has one. Novi, Brighton, everybody around us, I could not find an example of someone that does not have some sort of an official tied to the municipality group that meets to discuss these things. It's not necessarily every month. They have varying levels of advice versus running things, but pretty much everybody has something.
But in all them communities, do they have active parks that are things they have to take care of? I mean, that's the thing. Right now,
Can I approach?
come on up. Come on up. Be part of the conversation, Chris. There's nothing against you either.
I'm not. Look, honestly, guys, I got a kid in college and everything else.
Name for the record would be great.
Making you guys mad's the least of my worries, and not what I want. 59878 Mulberry Circle, Chris Schecker, South Lyon, Michigan. I just want to say, for me, I'm not going to give you my speech that I had. I'm going to just say this. It doesn't matter what you want to call us. I don't care if you call us the chair, the board, the parks, people. The title isn't there. I did this to volunteer my time to get something to move forward. As Patty has said, I feel, and please don't take this the wrong way, but I don't feel that we've been given the adequate administrative needs, let's say, to move forward in a proactive manner. I can give examples, but I'm not. I don't want to. And I'm not looking to finger point. To Sean's point, though, and he made a good point, a lot of these other townships, that's why I asked to talk, John, just now, I made calls to several of these other townships. I didn't know that Robert had talked to anybody from these cities. I had a long conversation with, I think her name was Gail, and I got it wrote down somewhere. I have several notes, as you can see. But from Green Oaks, their population is 19,000. I point that out for this reason. For the last year and a half, they've contemplated and given it to the planner to do, their parks board. They're going to actually start a Parks Advisory Board, and that's what they're going to call it. They thought about giving it to the planner, and they're going to do that, but they're actually thinking about more of turning it into a real board, because of this need from all the surveys and the people they've talked to, they see that as being a need. They also have properties over there that are set aside, I guess in their green space, for park dedication that they're going to make over there as well, and that's why they want this board. Salem has one, but they call it a community, let me give you the official name to it. They call it a community development. And what they do is they encompass not just parks, but let's say, for example, the Junior League wants to get a piece of parcel for something, or like in our case with the Junior Leagues we have here. They work through that to work with the township on that. My point being is that I don't care what we're called. I'm not looking to get money. I'm not even looking to have the budget with us. I just would like to be able to have someone join the board, give them an outline of our process, which I thought these bylaws were, and say, here's what we're about, here's what we do, and this is what we follow. The way it works now is, and Patty touched on this, poor Melanie. I mean, really, she is as good as she is with us on the phone. You can just tell she's overwhelmed. And these things, and I hate to even admit this, but these things are secondary to the other things that she's taking care of. And I get that. But I've called, it gets frustrating on my end too, because when the planner was pulled, or when we tried to get answers on stuff to get the grant process going, and I met with Brian on June 28th of last year, we haven't been able to get answers to finding where the properties are. As Brian has suggested, it just doesn't have to be at Atchison Park. So the idea that we had on the board, wow, why don't we explore these little parcels that the developers can't use? And we just haven't been able to get that. This isn't Robert's fault either, by the way. I want to point that out. I'm supposed to be the chair of the board. I could have very easily came to any one of you. I've come to this township before, and you guys have talked to me. So this is as much my fault as anybody else's. Do I think that we need to eliminate the board? Well, I guess I'm prejudiced in what I'm going to say, and no, I don't. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. I just think we need to get cleaned up and a little oil on us. And what I mean by that is if we can have active participation from somebody dedicated to the township while you guys work on a plan, that's all we need. We're not looking to do anything big over the next few months anyways, except for maybe possibly, if it's possible, do anything with some of the grants that I met with Brian on. That's all. That's all we're looking to do right now. So it would buy you guys the time, and again, like I'm saying, we're not moving forward with anything big right now except for trying to talk about that. At this point, I just don't want more to say. I don't think it should go away. I appreciate Patty not blasting me here. When I called her that day, it was I was a little heated, but that's the other thing I do want to say. And I don't say this to challenge you guys, and I hope I don't make anybody mad, but according to our bylaws, and according to the master plan set up with McKenna that we file, these things say the board. And I'm confused at times when, and I've been very vocal about this in our meetings, I'm confused at times when it goes to department heads, because I don't think that most of the department heads have the time really to even look to see what it is we're doing. I know that they're very busy. When I'm in here, everybody's working. So I would ask that if you wanted to start somewhere, maybe determine who can make the authorization for us when we do want to request stuff. You brought up the ice arena. Yeah, you guys have been very proactive in promoting things when we wanted it, but at the same time, we could have had that to you much sooner had we not had to go through this person, that person, that person. And to Sean's point, to some degree, it would help if we can have a centralized person, maybe meet once a week or do that. Brian does a pretty good job with it, but at the same time, as I always tell Brian, if you got something more important to do, go for it. I mean, this isn't as important as it is for some of the developments and things that are going on. So I try to be respectful of it, but at the same time, when it starts turning into months, you get frustrated, that's all. So I hope you guys can understand that.
Okay.
And it's nothing, I want to say this too. Whatever happens with this board, I'm on my HOA board in my neighborhood. I've promoted each and every one of you, privately and publicly. I've supported the board. Now, are there things that I don't agree with you guys on? Of course. All right, are there individuals sometimes I don't agree with what you say? Of course. But I've never chastised this board, never will. I'm not walking away from here mad. I'm not walking away from here feeling like I got slated. You know, I would ask though that if you do consider revamping it, maybe suspend it, not so much terminate it. So then that gives us a net, because I have a person now who wants to get on the board. I don't know if that was made known to you guys. And that's the other thing I want to bring to your attention. The day of our meeting, we had a board member quit, which led to Robert saying, let's talk about revamping it. We talked by phone that night. And I said, yeah, that would be a good idea. I think it was last Friday when I contacted you for the application because it was after hours. I think you said you had them. I don't want to give a wrong date, but this person had called me and said, hey, I'd like to join. You know, what's it about? Explained it to her, told them that they'd have to apply. And, you know, I said, if you go through the application process, love to have you. But you look back at some of the names of the people that have gone through our Parks Advisory Board and moved on. Lisa, Robert, John Hicks, Carl, you. Well, you already said it, Patty. So, make a long story short, I point these names out because some of these people have really served our community well. So this board does have a need. The last thing I'll say in closing is that you did touch on the fact that, or Robert or somebody touched on the fact that in all the other communities they have one. They do. And John, what I want to tell you is that they're very, very active, and this is aimed at you, but to answer your question, they're very active in working with their township board, advisory board or board. Example, Northville actually has the township, and the township works with the city to provide them answers, and that because more of the development of things and more of the historical preservation, which they're part of, is out in the township areas. So, you know, I want to form a good working relationship with you guys. I don't want to have this go wayside, and whatever I need to do to help, I would. But with that being said, I don't know if any of you have made up your mind or not, but I would ask you maybe to table this to see if we can get more questions answered, anything you might have for me. Maybe take a look at the bylaws and see what I'm telling you, or the master plan that has been filed through McKenna, and see for yourself if we haven't been trying to follow that to move this board forward with you guys and grow the community. So on that note, if you got any other questions, I'll stay here for a second.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Anybody got any questions or any thoughts? Or?
No, I mean, I guess maybe we could just, postpone or table this decision if there is somebody coming on, and then I'd be more than willing to kind of help with the hiring process, somebody in parks. I mean, I help with the, DPW hire, and anything I could do to help. Let me know too. I'd be happy to volunteer to help keep this going.
I think right now would be a fair time to ask the board, though. What do you guys want out of the Parks Advisory Board? We've never asked that to you guys. It'd be nice to hear your feedback on that.
It'd be nice to have an advisory board that gets involved. Kite Fest gets involved, volunteers, actually looks at things in the park that maybe they could come up and say, like the ice arena, and then follow that through. Get the ice arena put in. Maybe do things in the park like maybe sledding, like Lisa had a big deal with the sledding. Now I will say you guys did do a movie in the park. That's good. But that's the kind of things that the advisory board would bring advisory to this board to see if the funds are there to fund these things. And that's what we haven't seen, Chris. I'll be honest with you, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen, like when Robert brings a report, it's just like, well, I don't really have anything. And I know a lot of it is because you don't have members that sit on the board, so you don't have quorum, so you can't meet. And that's why we were thinking a reboot for this thing. You could keep the board together. It just wouldn't be called an advisory board, where you could meet and still come to this board and say, hey, look, we've got this, we've got that. And it wouldn't matter if you had a quorum. There would be 2 people. And if 2 people come with a great idea, this board could still move that forward. And until we find an actual employee that can help you, like a Brian or somebody, I mean, it's just, we're rolling our feet because we're all just very, very busy. And I'm not sure that Sean's not missed the point on that. I mean, maybe having a full-time person to do a little bit of all that. It's something that this township is growing to. And I thought, once that happened, you may find that the people you put together as volunteers and meet as you guys, put together things and then come to this board and say, hey, we got a great idea for this, this, and this. You'll find this board stands right behind you and would be super happy about that.
There's no doubt about that, John.
Forced position,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
It's mandatory. They come in, they meet. You guys come, you waste all your time. You come, 3 people don't show up. You sit here, you can't have a meeting. I mean, that's the kind of things this would help with. I mean, you could actually put together something that you could probably be real proud of. And, man, I don't know if it has to have a title of a board where you have to have quorums and you have to have set bylaws and things like that, because I think that's kind of holding you back, in my opinion. And you guys can say that, but that's my opinion. I think having a park advisory board in the situation we have right now kind of holds you guys back, because you can't ever have a meeting. You always got to have people. You got to find people that's going to sit on these and make commitments, and half of them won't do it. So,
but is it fair to point out, though, that our first meeting ever canceled because of not having members was last month?
I'm just saying.
No, I know. I'm just saying, but it's not the issue of getting the people. It's the issue of having administrative support for us to be able to proceed to the plans that we want to bring to you.
I mean, why would it be any different?
With membership, though? I mean,
Yeah.
there's never been, we've always struggled with membership. Maybe you've had quorum, but, I mean, that's not ideal either. I mean, there's something, and we don't need to get into a discussion as to why, but I really would like to know why, like, when people leave, what's the feedback? What's the reason? It's not like we would do exit interviews on a committee member who can't serve for whatever reason, but, I mean, if right now we're at the worst point we've ever been with membership, why is that?
You can touch on any number one of the subjects. I mean, stuff that we've talked here, I'm sure that maybe they'll say leadership by me or Robert or somebody from the past.
For a while, though, Chris, it isn't you. When it
No, I'm just saying. I mean, I'm sure to blame. I share the blame.
We started out with 9 members, and we couldn't quorum that.
Right.
So we went down to 5, trying to keep the members on there. Now we're down to where, what are we going to do now, 3? I mean, that's why I'm saying a reboot's in order. And if we dissolve this and bring it back to a committee style thing, it's not that you're going away. It's just you could do things more than you are now, I believe. I think you could get whoever you wanted in the room. You wouldn't be held to these members. You get somebody that has actually passionate about doing things for the park, and then come to these meetings and stand up and go, hey, look, we've got this and that. This board would stand up on its feet and cheer something like that.
Well, I will say this, and it's been brought up, the money piece, the volunteering part. I mean, you tell somebody, ask somebody to volunteer on anything anymore, and if they're not going after the jobs, it's next to impossible for that. But again, I'm not here to make anybody mad. I'm not here to start anything.
We don't take it that way.
Yeah, okay. I just want to talk about what the real issues are and move it forward. So, whatever you guys decide to do, I mean,
that's just my thought. I think that a reboot is really a good thing that we could do, and it wouldn't be getting rid of anybody. It would just make things not so responsible. Okay, you don't have to be here on this side. You don't have to have this. Keep it going. I mean, I think we have people that are passionate about it that'll keep this thing going. It could be better than it ever has been. I just don't think it has to be forced.
John, can I chime in? Or
please.
First of all, I may need to. Chris Dusen did come to a few meetings, so I don't want to.
It's okay.
I'll go back in my old, I remember when someone was still in high school, and we had a very strong core group of people when we were the park committee. I mean, sometimes it was a meeting of, Rose Case, me, Robert, and Lanny Young's son-in-law or something, and there might have been maybe 4 people, or like Brandon or Braden or something. And we got a lot done, and we didn't. I feel like the structure of the Park Advisory Board, I don't personally care for that structure, because the way that it works is that you guys make a suggestion, and then it has to go to Ed, the administrative team, to move past that. And I felt the most productive that we were when we were in the park committee format is that we would put together, like, all right, what do we want to do? So movies in the park was one thing. So we did all the research. We figured out how much it was going to cost. We looked at local communities, across many states to find out what was the best way that they ran it. Which movies did they choose? Which ones were the most successful? How much did the equipment cost? We did all of that work together. And then we came, I still remember Brent Hemker, I always knew I had to have enough answers to make sure that Brent said yes, because he was the one who was more focused on money. And if I didn't make a decent enough argument as the chair, and if he said no, then I knew I didn't have a good enough presentation. And so that was the strongest I felt that we were as a parks committee, because it didn't go to administration, it was within us, and then we made the presentation to the full board. And the full board heard every single request that we had. So I might have a different opinion than other people on this board. I preferred the committee format to the park advisory format. And so, I mean, I don't know about, I don't want people on the park advisory board to feel like if we dissolve this, that it's saying it's going away. I would like to see it continue. My personal opinion is that I'd like to see it continue in the committee format, and it empowers those individuals to, like, I still remember, is there a fish hatchery park or something in Northville?
7 Mile.
Yeah, I remember driving over there and looking at all of the different activities that they had, and we instituted the pavilion fee. And we never had a fee to rent or reserve a pavilion. And then I remember I was the one who went out there. I didn't ask the planner, I didn't ask any staff members to do it from the township. And we came up with what are we going to accomplish, and then we parsed it out and everybody did it. And then we came together as a group and we presented that to the board. So I felt the most empowered in that format. So that's how I feel about this park committee, that maybe if we take away some of these requirements of quorum and the size and the administrative component, because sometimes you guys have an idea that all of us don't even hear. We never hear about it because it didn't get to us. It got to the administrative team.
So back in the day, Lise, you're the one that started the sledding.
Yeah.
Because I remember you came down to the fence company and
Yes.
asked for fencing, and we donated, but you did that.
Right.
You and Kelly went out, you put all the fence up, you did the sledding hill. I mean, and that was committee form.
Right. Oh yeah.
So you actually could do things and get things done without the committed members that you're stuck with. And I don't mean stuck with. I don't mean it that way.
No, I'm not taking it that way.
But you can bring who you want in, and you can say, hey, look, this is what, our tasks are. Let's try to get this done. And I just think that's a good way to do this until we figure out some way to administrate it in-house.
It was a different structure, but it was still a township committee at the time. There were bylaws that were approved at the September 2006 board meeting for that iteration.
But I don't know if we need to go down that road.
I'm just saying there are different, like, we can change things, but there's a difference between its current form, its old form, and then having a totally separate organization.
Well, the biggest change that took place, John, Robert, was if you go back and look to 2012, that's what made it into an advisory board, if I'm not mistaken. That's when it revamped it. And even at that time, to your point, we were having the struggles. It was a 9-member panel then, or members then, and that's when we were including the planning commission, and I forgot who else, but
DDA.
So yeah, DDA and all that. So.
Well, I think the distinction is I don't care if you call it an advisory board or a committee.
Right.
They're the same thing. Okay, if the board is compiling this group, you're going to be subject to having bylaws, complying with the Open Meetings Act, all those type of things. If you're just an informal group of people, just like any other group in the township that might say, I would really like the township to do X. I'll get a bunch of people that, agree with that. We'll put a plan together. We'll go to the township board. Continuing in that format, You two would still be doing it. You bring in whoever you want depending on the project you're working on. You're not subject to any open meetings or anything like that. You meet whenever you want. You don't have a scheduled date that you have to meet, all those kind of things. So I guess the point I want to make is I don't see a distinction between advisory board and committee. I see a distinction between a township committee and a private group that's just getting together
Friends
and
of the
saying,
park.
yeah.
Friends of the park.
Exactly.
I mean, the junior league's a perfect example.
I was
mean, you
thinking
guys,
that.
you guys go ahead and you put something together and you said, hey, this is what we'd like to do on the park, and you brought it and it got done. I mean, that's the kind of thing.
They don't fall under any kind of a governmental
Right.
entity. It's just a group of volunteers that work hard and done a great job over decades of time, and that's had a lot of staying power. So, yeah,
But I mean, that's the same type of thing. You found a piece of property on a township land and you proposed it, and we all stood behind it. And so that's, well, I mean, that's the kind of good things.
Yes, that did go through this board, though.
Right, they brought it, though.
Right, but they brought it
It wasn't
to-
anything the board put together, a committee and them. They proposed it.
I'm just saying, these are things that group had done. Like in years past, you know, we would regularly meet with representatives from Junior League, from Panthers, there was a lacrosse thing, there was a soccer thing. We had, way back in the 2006 to 2009 version, we actually had one of Amy's former role's predecessors. It was the Recreation Commission then, before it was an authority. But
Oh, yes, Steve Lively.
yeah. I don't know. I'm belaboring the point at this point, I guess, but I see, yes, there are advantages to a friend group format, but I don't think it's the right move to just say, well, we're not going to have an official body.
John, what about the possibility, I don't even know if this can be done. This is just an idea that I had. I was going to propose maybe later on privately, but I guess I'll just throw it out there now since we're publicly talking about everything. What about the Friends of the Park that was set up to collect monies for park projects through private, and forgive me if I got the word wrong, it's been a while since I looked at, that was set up to, initially it was set up for the 11 Mile Milford Park, but then that was put wayside. But isn't that body still present? I don't know. I'm guessing.
Dean was part of that.
They never filed the 501c3.
Because my thought was, we transition out of this into that, and then what would be nice is you guys would have approval for what gets done, and we could just collect the monies and make a suggestion, and then there would be no, you decide what the projects would be. But again, just an idea thing outside the box.
Yeah.
They never collected a penny though.
No, I don't think they did.
No, they did not.
There were, people in that group facilitated collections that then went to the township fund. Like there were a couple donations from, I know Community Choice at one point had submitted like a $2,500 donation. There were a few things, but they went into I believe we have a fund with other developer contributions and things.
We have from
that sits in.
developers.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever getting anything from the community checks. Is that what you
No,
said?
Community Choice, the credit union. One of my minutes says that they wrote us a $2,500 check, and that it was.
It's probably an 11 Mile Park.
Yes.
I have to look at that.
Yeah, I think that was for the 11 Mile, because I was sitting on with the Parks and Rec Board during that time frame.
Or it would be in our,
when we started to
Because
do
there's
the
still
whole
money in
Friends
that
group and set up the 501c3.
Oh, yeah,
So I
there's
was
money in there.
Really involved
That's
with
just
getting all
for the
that
11 Mile Park.
paperwork done, but then we never filed. And one of the reasons that we had looked at setting up the 501c3 is because we were talking to some developers that wanted to designate funds specifically for parks. So we were looking at setting that up to try to capture that money, and then it just ended up, when nothing happened, it ended up going to the township directly.
To 11 Mile Park.
Yeah.
I'll look for that.
What do you think?
I think we should reboot this thing. I think we should dissolve this is just me, I think we should dissolve this body, and hopefully it'll come back as a volunteer kind of body until we can find some administrative people in the township that'll take over. that can actually do some work on this. And that's, I don't think that's going to be a few months. I think that's going to be, there's some work to that.
So, John, please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to follow your logic on that. So you guys would bring it in-house, find somebody to hire, whether it's full-time, part-time, planner, no planner, to help head that up? Is that what you're
That could be the
suggesting?
go-to person that you would call, that the park people could call to help them, organize some of this stuff.
Okay.
I
just want to make sure.
They could attend your meetings and.
Yeah, I mean, right now, you're just in the wind. Like you say, you don't know who to call, and it's not your
Not
fault.
fair to you.
Mel is just, she gets grumpy. She's got 15 things going on.
She's always been nice. I want to point that out.
You mentioned you had called Mel, and I'm like, well, I felt bad when I talked to you.
I know she was trying to get some contract together or something, I guess, a junior league contract on something.
That's the email I sent to you guys looking for it. And I want you guys to know something. I don't know about any other chairperson for this group. I'll say this publicly so there's no quote-unquote rumors about it. I'm kind of a mouth. I like talking. So with that being said, I get a lot of people that approach me in both my neighborhood and outside of it. And I'll talk about anything with anybody on anything. As a result, we've been getting a lot of, I brought this up in our meeting a few months back, we've been getting some calls there's some people in my neighborhood who belong to the churches. In the last 4 months, I've gotten 4 calls. The last one was from the Methodist Church over, I think it's 9 Mile or 10 Mile. Anyways, they said, hey, your residents said that you're on an HOA board, and they said you also are on Parks board. We'd like to know where we can get ball diamonds. Now, I know the issue with the ball diamonds, and I said, maybe you should call the township to talk to them about this because, for us, it's kind of a sore subject. And knowing that we've been bugging Melanie about getting a junior league agreement, not to slam anybody with or say, hey, haha, but more or less just to say, hey, look, what are the outline agreement so that we can have these people be able to play, if they want to, on a Sunday at 4 or Sunday at 3 or any of that. And with that being said, some of the things that we've asked Melanie for have been for that reason. For example, when I brought it with Bryant, and I think, Brian, I don't want words in your mouth, but you had suggested a few times to me, look elsewhere, That's the purpose of your board, is to try to get, park needs and wants together. So that's why I've been bugging about getting Melanie about getting the, I don't know what you would call it, but where the public or where the township holds the property at, so we can see and talk to you guys about that. Again, we haven't got nothing. I'm not trying to single her out, but
I don't think what property are you? I don't think
just properties for us to be able to look at and say, hey, how about a park here? Or how about something there? Like I said earlier in this speech that I made, looking at a piece of parcel maybe that a developer can't do anything with, and putting it in a pocket park or putting in a pavilion with a swing set or something so that people can rent it. I don't know if even that can be done, but these are the things that we talk about on our board that never get materialized because we're just trying to get it going, and we just meet. We just run into everybody having to do things, and as a result, it just doesn't get picked up.
Well, John, I was going to say, I understand what you're saying, and I understand and appreciate your approach. So in that spirit, and with the goal of trying to reestablish a committee or an advisory board, I will offer to move Resolution 20-22-07.
Okay.
I will second.
All right, we have a support and a second. Any further discussion?
Can we add a clause in there that that the size was subsequently changed to 5 on September 4th, 2018?
I wrote, if that even matters.
I wrote particular language that I just sent to Carol and Brian.
I would accept that friendly amendment. Yes.
Okay.
Me too. You just sent it to me?
I just sent it.
You didn't read it?
All right, well, we have a motion to go ahead and terminate the resolution for the Park Recreation Advisory Committee, and seconded.
And I just for the record, with the goal of reestablishing something in an organized fashion so we can support moving ahead with these types of things.
John, am I able to ask a question?
Go ahead.
So let's just say that the existing park advisory board members wanted to meet and come up with an idea in the interim and say, look, we wanted to have a movies in the park. There's nothing that would prevent them from, as just citizen A, B, and C to come to the board and
Absolutely not.
request it and ask to be added to the agenda.
I think
And
that would be
It's the same
wonderful.
thing, they just don't need a quorum, they don't need to have minutes, they don't need to follow the Open Meetings Act. It's all the same.
So
You can still meet on a regular basis if they want. Nothing's.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure
It really
that,
unties their hands.
right.
Yeah, I think it's a great, I think, yes.
I don't know.
So like if they wanted to reestablish a sledding hill for next,
Yeah.
next winter, they could, 3 people could get together, they could come to the board, they have the opportunity to make that request. We have money in the budget perhaps.
And we still have money for the ice rink,
The committee will be back.
Okay,
you know?
so it doesn't preclude them from continuing doing work?
No, not at
Okay.
all. I would think it would encourage it. to be honest
Okay.
with you.
All right.
I don't know,
Okay.
it just gives, there's less clout with, you're just saying anybody can come up and suggest anything, I guess. You know,
I'm not
having an
worried-
official.
Less clout.
I'm
There
not
would be
worried
more
about the
people
clout.
that-
I'm worried
no.
about an idea. I don't go around
Exactly.
trying to offer clout. I offer solutions. So
Right.
it's either a good idea or it's not. So
Absolutely.
Well, I think we're making a big mistake by terminating this. I mean, I'm okay if we postpone it and get organized with staff, but, I mean, Parks and Recreation is what people want.
And it's important, but no one is volunteering. So we've never had more people
But
here.
you're not
and we've-
advertising
we've
it.
never had fewer.
No one at this township is advertising these open positions.
If people are
Okay,
half as
you?
upset as you are, they're going to want an application, and then we'll be able to put
And
this
they
thing
have
back
an
together in 30
application.
days.
All right, well, we have a motion and a support. Well, let's call this one by roll, if you would, please, April.
Pat Carconi?
Yes.
Lisa Blades?
Yes.
Michelle Cash?
Yes.
Sean O'Neill?
Yes.
Christopher Enlow?
No.
Robert Swain?
No.
John Dolan?
Yes. Okay, that concludes our agenda for tonight. Any other business anyone would like to discuss? If not, I consider this meeting adjourned.